Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video, I'm going to do a review and blood glucose test of the 5-gram net carb bagels from Sola. I've done 2 or 3 reviews of the Sola bread and bun products over the last few years, and although I like the taste, it's probably one of the truest bread tasting keto or low carb breads that I've had. My blood glucose response, a little bit high. It's been anywhere between 20 milligrams per deciliter and 30 milligrams per deciliter. So right up there to the edge of a glucose spike. Additionally, while they have improved the ingredients by getting rid of canola oil and moving to olive pumice oil, there are still a number of ingredients on here that I think some of you are not going to approve of. First, let's talk about the nutritional information. Serving size is 1 bagel, 140 calories, 5 grams of total fat, a whopping 31 grams of total carbohydrates. So if you're counting total carbs, these are out. Of those 31 grams of carbs, 24 grams are dietary fiber, 2 grams are sugar alcohol for a net 5 grams, and there are 16 grams of protein. I'm not going to read out the full ingredients list. I will call out a couple, though, that I think may concern some people. Resistant wheat starch, wheat gluten, partially defatted soy flour, wheat protein isolate. Those are the biggies right there. Now what I will do is I will post the ingredients right up here on the screen for just a couple of seconds. You can hit pause and read them yourself, so I'm not taking up a bunch of time. Historically on the bread tests, what I have done, just to be consistent across every video that I have done, I have eaten 1 slice just plain, nothing on it, and 1 slice toasted and buttered. The reality is, with bagels, I am never going to eat them plain. I'm always going to have something on it, probably cream cheese. For the bagels, I am going to toast 1 half. Both halves are going to have cream cheese on it because that's the way I'm going to eat it in real life. One thing that bums me out, just ever so slightly, is these are not pre-sliced. I've yet to have a low-carb bagel that had the taste or texture of a real bagel. I'm going to come in on the screen again and let you see the texture on this. It does seem a little bit more densely packed than other keto bagels or low-carb bagels that I've tried. The big test is going to be the texture. So I'm going to throw 1 half into the toaster. I'm going to put some cream cheese on the other half, and then it's time for a taste and texture test. I have topped each bagel half with about 1 ounce or approximately 30 grams of Philadelphia cream cheese. It's not quite as dense and chewy as a real bagel, but definitely better than any low-carb bagel I've had before. Taste-wise, this is a tough one. It definitely tastes like a pretty good bread. It's been probably, I don't know, close to 6 years since I've had a real bagel, though. I seem to recall them having a little bit more of a sourdough taste to it, but maybe that's just my faulty memory. Let's try out the toasted one now. This is what I remember a bagel being like, tasting like. Texture, very close. Taste, very close. In fact, this seems close enough to a real bagel that frankly, I think I'm going to be shocked if I don't see some sort of a blood glucose spike from this. And to that end, I will be using a Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitor, along with the Dexcom app and the Levels Health Analysis software to see how this impacts my glucose over the next 2 hours. Then I'll be back to give you the numbers. All right, it's been about 2.5 hours. Let's open the Levels Health app and see what my blood glucose response was over the course of the 2 hours after I ate that bagel. Not all that bad. Levels scored this a 7 out of 10. The higher the score, the better. They call it a gentle rise. Let's go into the details. 22 points of glucose movement, so comparable to what I've experienced with other Sola products. Not a spike. A spike is typically considered 30 milligrams per deciliter or more of glucose movement. Now here's a little interesting wrinkle in all of this. About a half an hour after I had that bagel, I was changing the battery in my backup sump pump, and I'm working with electricity here, and even though I wasn't touching either of the 2 posts at the same time, so no risk of electrocution, I got an alert on my Apple Watch. I don't know what it was. It was a text or something, and it buzzed. And if you've ever worked with electricity and all of a sudden there's a buzzing sensation, your heart is going to skip a beat. The reason I bring this up is one of the things I've experienced with a continuous glucose monitor is if I'm suddenly startled or injured unexpectedly, like once I was putting on my shirt while walking through a door and banged my elbow on the door frame, my glucose went up by 30 points just from that. So it's possible that some of this glucose movement was caused by me being startled exchanging that battery. Now, I'm going to put that to the test by trying out 2 of the other flavors of the Sola Bagels, starting with tomorrow when I'll be back to try out the blueberry flavor, and we'll see what kind of glucose spike I get from that. Next up, we have the blueberry bagels. Nutrition facts: serving size, 1 bagel, 140 calories, 6 grams of total fat, 33 grams of total carbohydrates, of which 23 are dietary fiber, 5 are sugar alcohol for a net 5 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of protein. And as with the plain bagels, I will put the ingredient list up on the screen. You can pause it, take a look for yourself. Now, I apologize if you can hear a generator going on in the background. My neighbor over there has got some sort of construction thing going on, so apologies for that. Now, for these blueberry bagels, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the plain bagels, and I'll do the same thing again when I have the cinnamon raisin bagels. I have one that is toasted, one that is untoasted, and both of them have some cream cheese on them. So I'm going to start with the untoasted. It's all right. The texture reminds me more like of a piece of crushed bread, thick crushed bread, but just sort of that density rather than a bagel density. Also, I'm getting just a tiny, tiny little bit of bitterness at the back end. The blueberry flavor is not super duper pronounced. It's there, but it's not really, really strong. And the little blueberry chunks in it, none of them are so big that you get that sort of flavor pop from them. Let's try out the toasted one. Wow, that toasting makes some difference. Definitely getting more of the blueberry taste. I really like the texture on these. Flavor is just great. I mean, this is good. Not quite as chewy as a real bagel, but wow, pretty solid. So now I'm going to eat the rest of these, and I'll be back in 2 hours, after which time I can share you the data from my continuous glucose monitor. All right, let's take a look at what my glucose response was over the course of the last hour. Not too shabby. An 8 out of 10. That is a very good score. Let's take a look at the details. Just 12 points of glucose movement. Now, what is kind of interesting is at about the last 15 minutes or so, there was quite a dip in my glucose. You can see it better back on the original picture. And if I open the Dexcom app, you can see pretty stable throughout the day. There were a couple of little dips for some reason. Oftentimes that means that a sensor could be getting ready to fail on me. So I'm going to monitor this over the course of the day, and I will update you in the next segment when I do my taste test of the Everything Bagel. The final flavor I will be trying out will be the Everything Bagels. Let's take a look at the nutritional information. 150 calories, 6 grams of total fat, 33 grams of total carbohydrates, of which 24 are dietary fiber and 2 are sugar alcohol for a net 16 grams of protein. And as before, I will put the ingredient list up on the screen. You can pause it, read it for yourself. I won't take up your time. First, I'm going to do the untoasted side, and let's just compare. It looks like the toasted side has more of the everything seasoning on it, so we'll take that into consideration. It's decent. Not a strong amount of the everything seasoning on it, at least the bite that I got. I also didn't get that slightly bitter finish that I got for sure on bagel number 2, the blueberry one, so that could have been some sort of a sweetener issue. Let's try out the toasted side. This definitely continues the trend of the toasted version being heads and shoulders above. Very good. Still, I feel like it's a little bit weak on the everything seasoning. Didn't get a whole lot of the onion and the garlic in it. You know, a little bit of poppy seed, a little bit of sesame seed, but if you like a real powerful everything bagel, this is not the one. Still quite tasty, and I gotta believe that some shaved roast beef on this, I'm already salivating just thinking of that. Some shaved roast beef on a toasted one of these with some cream cheese would be wonderful. But I'm gonna finish these and then, per usual, be back with my blood glucose results. All right, let's take a look at what my blood glucose results were over the course of the last 2 hours. This is kind of interesting. Levels scored this a 5 out of 10 or a moderate spike. Let's go into the details. A 30-point glucose change. Now this is quite a difference from the other 2 bagels that I had. Now the one difference between today and the previous 2 days is right about the same time I had this bagel, I also took my midday supplements, which included a B complex, some ashwagandha, I think maybe a colostrum tablet. I don't remember exactly, but it's possible that maybe one or more of those had some sort of a filler to them that might have caused this glucose reaction. So just to be safe, I'm going to try these again tomorrow. I'm not going to make you watch me eat them again in the next segment, but I'm going to try them again tomorrow. I'll see if the blood glucose results were the same as today or if they were the same as the previous 2 bagels, and then I will give my summary thoughts on the Sola Bagels. So I wound up doing 2 days worth of tests, and I'll explain why in a moment. But first, let's take a look at my second test on the Everything Bagel. Levels scored at a gentle rise, or if we take a look at the specific details, 26 points of glucose movement versus the 30 previously. So that is probably within the margin of error. Again, we're getting very close to what would be categorized as a glucose spike. Now, because of the results that I saw both on the plain bagel and on the Everything Bagel, it kind of called into question the results that I got on the Blueberry Bagel, which were quite a bit lower, and as I explained during that segment, my CGM was acting a little bit flaky that day. So I retried the Blueberry Bagel, and let's take a look at the results on that. Levels scored at a moderate spike, or 29 points of glucose movement, which is far more in line with the other ones. It's also very consistent with the blood glucose results I've had from other Sola products. So what is my summary on this? Unfortunately, this falls into a little bit of a gray area because it's not a blatant offender, yet at the same time, it's not something I can clearly give a green light to. So let's sort of go red light, yellow light, green light. But actually, before I do it, it's important for me to note that I am not a type 1 or type 2 diabetic. I think if you are, you may see a greater glucose response from this. And certainly, if you are a diabetic who has tried out the Sola products previously and experienced a blood glucose spike, you can probably expect the same from this. So if you fall into that category, or if you are doing clean, strict keto, or if you are counting total carbs, or if you have an issue with wheat or soy or any of the other ingredients that I've posted, or lastly, if you are in the weight loss phase. I have found that all of these bread and tortilla products that are out there on the market that call themselves keto or low carb seem to stall people's progress in weight loss. So if you fall into any of those aforementioned categories, I would say this product is a no-go. If, however, you have hit your weight loss goals and you're comfortable with the ingredients, or if you're more low carb than keto, I think then this product sort of falls into a yellow area, sort of a proceed with caution. And the reason I put it into the proceed with caution category is I find that, at least for me, these products, just like eating carbs in general, I start feeling hungry more frequently. And I could see that this could be a little bit of a slippery slope. I could feel some cravings sort of coming on. So I think it's important that if you're going to have these, you sort of budget yourself, you control your intake, and be prepared to have some cravings, unless you consume these with a bunch of protein and fat, which might stave that off. Something I give Sola credit for is they do not label their products as keto or as low carb. They simply list the net carbs on the package. So they're not trying to confuse anybody that's doing keto or low carb into thinking that this is a product that's safe for everybody, that will fit into your dietary lifestyle. So I do appreciate that from Sola. Sola has 3 other flavors of bagels. They have a buttery, sweet and buttery, the cinnamon and raisin, which is what I thought I had purchased when I purchased the everything bagel, and chocolate chip. And I have a suspicion that those three are probably the most likely to exceed that 30-point threshold for a spike. I don't know, that's just an assumption. I may do a review of those in the future if I see them in the grocery store. They weren't there the last trip. I would also like to know, for those of you who have done your own blood glucose testing on the Sola Bagels, what your results were, and if you are a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, please let us all know down in the comments below. The more data points, the better. But that is it for this video. I kind of wish I would have had either better news or worse news. We're kind of, like I said, in that gray area. Now, if you found this video helpful or informative, please click that like button. If you're not a subscriber already, tap that subscribe button, then hit the bell to turn on all notifications. And if you'd like to find out what sort of perks are involved in channel memberships, click that join button. Check them out. But that's it. Thanks for watching.